Idemo sad uživo u Izraelu, grad Migdal. Tamo je Sefi Kedmi, izraelski politolog i analitičar. Hello, Sefi, and thank you for joining me from Israel.
Hello, Nina, and thank you for having me again.
Let's start. What actually has Israel achieved in Gaza after 2 years of war?
So I want to first begin by paying respects to all the innocent victims of this conflict that started on October 7th. Many people forget that to a large extent, this started on October 7th with the massacre of 1,200 Israelis. For Israel, it was like 9/11 by 50 times larger per capita, the deadliest attack on Jews since the Holocaust. Just for proportion, Israel has 2.5 times the population of Croatia, but 2.5 times smaller area. This is a very had a huge impact on us. Since then, Israel achieved important results. First and foremost, 203 of the 251 hostages were retrieved to Israel. It resulted in deterrence. We restored our deterrence in the region, and Hamas has been severely weakened. Almost all of its political and military leadership has been eliminated, and about 25,000 of his fighting force have been killed. Too often, the international media ignores the number of Hamas militants killed and mixes that together with the number of total casualties. It's very important to note. We also had regional effects vis-a-vis Hezbollah in Syria, in Yemen, and most importantly, versus the Islamic Republic of Iran that orchestrated everything.
Okay, so if Hamas releases the hostages, what changes for Israel?
Everything would change. We would be able to breathe again, first of all, as human beings. The release of the hostages will open a true potential to end the war, because for most Israelis, the continuation of the conflict is driven primarily by the need to secure the hostages. It will also allow Gaza to begin to rebuild itself and to return to normalcy, but under clear conditions set out by the peace plan of President Trump. Hamas must be removed from power and replaced by an international and Arab coalition. Gaza must be fully demilitarized, and the entire Palestinian system that brought about the October 7th and the entire war must change, both in the West Bank and Gaza, and specifically in the education and media systems that should be focused on coexistence, peace, and recognition with Israel, rather than jihad and martyrdom. It will also enable Israel, for us, to heal internally, to grapple with everything that happened, and to continue with regional integration and peace with Arab and Muslim countries, the process that Hamas tried to derail when it started this war.
What do you think? Is the two-state solution still realistic?
To a large extent, I think it's actually very realistic, or more realistic today than ever before. I know it might come as a surprise to many, but at the end of the day, neither side is going to leave. Both people must learn to live alongside each other. And over the last 2 decades, we had main obstacles that some of which can be resolved as a result of ending this war. Hamas would be removed from Gaza, so the split between Hamas and the PA will end, and potentially there would be a recognition of the solution of 2 states for 2 peoples with the new government that eventually will take control over there. The issue of thousands of Palestinian prisoners, that was very important for the Palestinians, would predominantly be resolved because these people who were convicted of terror and violence would be released as part of the prisoner exchange and in exchange for our kidnapped civilians. And the refugee problem now has a potential to be dealt with because of the understanding that UNRWA the UN agency that deals with them has been part of the problem, a major part of the problem rather than a solution, and it must be addressed. And
so what does yeah, but what does Israel want to see happen in Gaza long term? Who will govern Gaza? How those people will live? How do you see that situation?
Israel is not a monolith, right? We're a vibrant democracy, and there are very different opinions within the Israeli society. However, for the most part, most Israelis just want to live in peace and coexist with with the people of Gaza first and foremost. We don't want to rule over them. We don't want to live amongst them, and we want to coexist. And we hope that the international body of especially Arab countries and Muslim countries that have relations with Israel will take over Gaza with Palestinians who are oriented towards peace and coexistence, and would be able to fundamentally change the situation and rebuild it, so much so that Gaza will never be a threat to Israel, and can focus on rebuilding itself, educating the youth. Over 50% of the population in Gaza are kids or youth under 18, to have a prospect for peace rather than be used and abused for jihad and death.
So you don't think that you are quite optimistic. You think that you might be realistic.
I am very realistic, but I'm also optimistic. I think there is a possibility for change. And now the international community and people who want both Israel and Palestine to thrive need to put extreme pressure on Hamas and all the parties that are able to influence Hamas, specifically Turkey and Qatar, to make sure Hamas complies with all the points of the plan. Gaza has to be demilitarized. Gaza has to go through external deep reform, and so the people of Gaza will have a future. Otherwise, we are bound to repeat the same mistakes over and over again. Israel doesn't really have a choice. If they choose to attack us, we will defend ourselves, and we are stronger. The result will be the same. We want to change that situation so they have a future alongside Israel, and don't spend their years, especially in the refugee camps, which is a problem on its own. They should learn to live within Palestine and build their future in Palestine, in Gaza, in the West Bank, as free people who want to live in peace with their neighbors. It is possible, but we need the help from our friends.
So what do you think? Can Egypt and Qatar still play a useful role?
Yes, I think Egypt and Qatar, and also Turkey, who are the main Arab and Muslim military and financial powers in the region, and also maintain relations with Israel, even if they're cold or unofficial, like in Qatar, they have a very important role in this region. But Israel, together with the United States and other allies, must insist that these three countries fully normalize relations with Israel. It's a very, very important point. They must refuse to host Hamas and other jihadist groups, and they need to de-radicalize their media, especially Al Jazeera, that acted like the mouthpiece for Hamas during this war. If these change, then they have a very important role and can influence the Arab world in general, and specifically Palestine and Hamas, for the better. And the people who will enjoy the fruits of that would be first and foremost the Palestinians themselves, who will not be used for external agendas and won't pay the price.
And what about Iran?
Iran has been a detractor, but the Islamic Republic learned the lesson that it and all of its proxies, specifically in Lebanon and in Yemen, and to a certain extent in Iraq, and obviously Iran itself, were hit. They understood that Israel is not this weak player that they can threaten and fight using their proxies. They were hit hard. Their leadership, military leadership, and their nuclear power were were hit very, very strongly. And if they do not change course, they will be hit again. They are openly saying that they want to destroy the state of Israel. And we will not allow that to happen. We have proven it once, and we will prove it again and again as much as necessary, simply because we don't have a choice. But if Iran, or maybe a new regime in Iran, will say that it is willing to coexist with Israel, we would be the happiest people on earth. We have nothing against the good people of Iran. They're brilliant people. There's huge potential. We had great relations in the past. Iranian people are not the enemy of the people of Israel or the Jewish people. Actually, we have a very good history running thousands of years between our two peoples, and we hope and wish for the day of peace and coexistence. But it's up to the regime in Iran.
Can you tell me a little bit about how is to live in Israel nowadays when it comes to Netanyahu? The majority of Israelis, do they support him or they are changing their mind?
Well, that's a very challenging question. First and foremost, although I manage a polling company and I deal with polls all the time, polling during war is very, very difficult because, waiting for the hostages to return as a nation, we stopped breathing, we stopped thinking clearly. So we also have to put our polls aside. But if we look at it, the coalition that Netanyahu has been managing in the last 3 years, or if we look at it even before, has lost about 18 out of 120 seats in almost every poll. So he does not enjoy, from a coalition perspective, the same support that he did in the past, although he managed to retrieve much of his support with the attacks on Iran and Lebanon and with the military defeat of Hamas. But that remains to be seen. Israel is still a democracy. In less than 1 year, we're supposed to have elections, and we will see what the Israeli people would vote. But all polls suggest that it will be very, very difficult for Netanyahu to form another government. And I can tell you that, generally speaking, the Israeli people want unity. We're tired of internal wars. We're definitely tired of the war in the region. And we want a government that will fulfill what most Israelis can agree on, which is what most normal people in the world also want, which is to live in peace and build our country and focus on our children and our future.
Okay, Sefi, thank you for this interview. Thank you for joining me, and talk to you soon.
Thank you very much for having me, and I'm happy to come whenever you want. Thank you.
Thanks.